स्वाहा पितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ संगच्छध्वं संवदध्वं शम्भो मनसि जानताम् देवाभागं यथा पूर्वे जनाना उपास्यते योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचा मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योगाकरोतं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि।
Thank you, Vishakha and team. The students are from the bachelor's and master's in yogic science. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Garima Jaswal for the welcome note.
Thank you, Mr. Nilachal, sir. Good morning to all dignitaries, members of the program. I feel proud to state that Department of Yoga and Naturopathy SBU organized this webinar on Yoga, Ancient Trend and Recent Advancement, YATRA. Under the gracious guidance and blessings of our Chancellor, Honorable Joyshri Mohta Ma'am, Pro-Chancellor, Honorable B.K. Dalan, sir, and our CEO, Honorable Dr. Pradeep Kumar Verma, sir. Today, we have with us Honorable Mr. Subodh Tiwari, sir, CEO, Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala, Maharashtra, as our speaker of the day. I would like to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Gopal Pathak, sir, Honorable Registrar, Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh, sir, respected Dean, Nursing and Public Health, Dr. Subhani Bara, ma'am, respected Administrator, Mr. Ashutosh Kumar Vedi, sir, our learned faculty Department of Yoga and Naturopathy, Mr. Nilachal, sir, Ms. Namrita Chauhan, ma'am, Mr. Pankaj Kesri, sir, Mr. Sail, sir. I would like to also welcome all the professors, research scholars, students, yoga seekers from the different corner of the country in this webinar, YATRA. I once again warmly welcome all of you to online webinar YATRA. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the welcome note. And the countdown to the 8th International Day of Yoga 2022 has already begun, and we are all celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and with the aim to raise the awareness worldwide of many benefits of yoga. And moving further, I'd like to just invite our respected registrars, sir. And before inviting him, let me just give a brief introduction of our university. Established in 2018, Sarala Birla University in Ranchi has grown in multiple dimensions and in multiple disciplinaries. There are many courses that are run here. This growth and achievement wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of the elders, and we haven't reached so far till now. This yatra wouldn't have been possible either without the guidance of our respected registrars, sir. So I would like to request to respected registrar, sir, Professor B.K. Singh, sir, to address this webinar. Respected registrar, sir.
जी, good morning. Thank you, Nilachal ji. पिछले दिनों हम लोगों ने वेबिनार को शुरू किया था, ऑनलाइन वेबिनार को। ये शायद दूसरे दिन का टॉपिक है। इस कार्यक्रम में भाग ले रहे श्री सुबोध तिवारी जी, डीन पब्लिक हेल्थ, नर्सिंग एंड पब्लिक हेल्थ, आशुतोष द्विवेदी जी, फैकल्टी मेंबर्स, ऑल द स्टूडेंट्स योगा एंड नेचुरोपैथी। एक तो मैं स्वागत करता हूं विश्वविद्यालय की तरफ से अपने सुबोध तिवारी जी का, जिन्होंने इस वेबिनार में अपना समय दिया है। मैं देख रहा था कि 75 मिनट का उनका एक टॉपिक है और जिस पर वो आज बोलेंगे। हम सभी जानते हैं कि सरला बिरला विश्वविद्यालय की स्थापना 17 में हुई थी। 18 से हम लोगों ने इस विश्वविद्यालय को प्रारंभ किया और प्रारंभ किया उसी साल से, उसी वर्ष से योगा एंड नेचुरोपैथी एक डिपार्टमेंट बना। यानी हमने योगा एंड नेचुरोपैथी को झारखंड के अनुकूल और पूरे देश और दुनिया के अनुकूल एक डिपार्टमेंट खोलने का साहस किया और आज झारखंड में एक अच्छा डिपार्टमेंट योगा एंड नेचुरोपैथी डिपार्टमेंट है। और इसका श्रेय वहाँ के हमारे सभी डीन्स और जो फैकल्टी मेंबर्स हैं उनको जाता है कि उनके परिश्रम से हम सभी आज तीसरे चौथे साल में जा रहे हैं और ऐसे ऐसे कार्यक्रम का आयोजन भी कर रहे हैं। मैं आज के इस अवसर पर बहुत कुछ नहीं कहते हुए, क्योंकि अपने जो रिसोर्स पर्सन हैं श्री सुबोध तिवारी जी, सीईओ, उनका हम सभी सुनने वाले हैं। तो मैं आज के इस अवसर पर उनको पुनः एक बार हृदय से धन्यवाद देते हुए उनको आग्रह करूंगा और साथ में अपने जितने भी पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं आज के इस अवसर पर, मैं उनसे यह कहूंगा कि इन्होंने इतना समय निकाला है तो हम सभी इसका लाभ उठाएं। और ये चूंकि यात्रा है, बड़ा अच्छा नाम है। पिछले दिनों हम लोगों ने इस पर चर्चा किया था कि यात्रा पूरा योगा एंशिएंट ट्रेंड्स एंड रिसेंट एडवांसमेंट, उसको जोड़कर हम लोगों ने यात्रा शब्द दिया है। तो ये यात्रा अच्छी हो, यादगार हो, हम सभी इससे कुछ सीख पावे, इसी कामना और शुभकामना के साथ मैं अपनी बातों को समाप्त करता हूँ। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your motivating words. Now, I'd like to invite our respected Dean, Nursing and Public Health, Dr. Subhani Bara ma'am, to address this session. Ma'am, you need to unmute yourself. Your voice is not audible.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
you're audible. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I feel proud to state that Department of Yoga and Naturopathy, Sarala Birla University, Ranchi has organized this YATRA webinar series. I thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Gopal Pathak sir, and respected Registrar, Dr. Vijay Kumar Singh sir, for their support and approval for this webinar series. It is our pleasure to have Mr. Subodh Tiwari ji, CEO, Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala. I express my gratitude to sir, which is one of the, I express my gratitude for Kaivalyadhama, which is one of the finest and best institution in the field of yoga, and their valuable contribution. I wish all the best to Mr. Nilanjan, convener of this YATRA series and joint coordinator of Department of Yoga and Naturopathy, Dr. Garima Jaiswal, Professor Namrata Chauhan, and all the faculty members. The topic yoga and therapeutic approach in modern life is very important and innovative Let's learn something more through this webinar. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your kind words. Now, moving further to this webinar. And before inviting our speaker, let me give a brief introduction of Kaivalyadhama that we all know and that we all admire and that we have learned in our education years and our bachelor's graduation and post-graduation. So, founded by Swami Kaivalyadhama ji in 1924, Kaivalyadhama is one of the oldest pioneering yoga institutes in the world. Kaivalyadhama follows the principles and follows the philosophy of Maharishi Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga and takes pride in teaching traditional yoga in its purest form with a unique perspective. Kaivalyadhama is the first yoga institute to proactively conduct scientific research for demonstrating the benefits and uses of yoga. We're still reading the researches that Kaivalyadhama publishes, and that's the base we all are actually making. So with that introduction, I would like to introduce our speaker of this webinar, Shri Subodh Tiwari ji, CEO Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala, Maharashtra. Shri Subodh Tiwari ji was born in the yogic atmosphere at Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala. At a very young age, he was initiated into spiritual practices by Swami Digambar ji, then director and spiritual head of Kaivalyadhama. He commenced his yoga journey at the age of 6 under the guidance of his father, Shri O.P. Tiwari ji, a disciple of Swami Kaivalyadhama ji, the founder of Kaivalyadhama. Having completed his training, he started teaching yoga in 1933, and in 1997, he decided to devote his life in the service of Kaivalyadhama. Ever since, he has been an integral part of Kaivalyadhama at various organizational and administrative levels. Shri Subodh Tiwari ji has traveled world over for conducting yoga workshops and has been invited to speak at numerous national and international symposiums. He is a senior committee member and advisor at various universities to promote yoga in schools and colleges. He actively contributes to many yoga and wellness initiatives by the Government of India and Government of Maharashtra. He has contributed to literary publications in the area of yoga research. He has been involved in the policy making and research level in various capacities. At present, he is the Secretary General of the Indian Yoga Association, Board Member of Yoga Certification Board, Ministry of Ayush, Member of Governing Council for Inter-University Center for Yoga Science, UGC, Member of the Governing Council of the NCTE, Chairman of the Subgroup of Yoga CII, Member of the High Level Tech Task Force on Yoga Research by CCRYN. So this was a brief just to give, and he is a very humble person, and I'd like to thank him for accepting our invitation. And we are very lucky to have you on this webinar series. I welcome you with your words only, which you mentioned recently in your one of the videos, that which goes like this: June 21st should be the culmination of the practices and experiences which everyone has to go throughout the year. Yoga is not about a day, but doing it every day. So I welcome you, sir, on this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Namaskar, namaskar. Thank you for inviting me on this YATRA. And I'm glad I'm able to participate and be with all of you here online. I often say, जो सबसे महत्वपूर्ण चीजें होती हैं जिंदगी में, what the most profound things in life have to be very simple. And that actually is true of even yoga. You know, I was born in Kaivalyadhama, Lonavala itself. So I've been lucky that I was born in Swami Kaivalyadhama ji's Tapobhumi. Or I'm happy that I can share some insights with you. I'll speak to you for probably a few minutes and then go on to the presentation. But sharing some stories is always a good idea. यात्रा है, यात्रा में अनुभव अगर हम एक दूसरे से शेयर करें वो ज्यादा अच्छा है. टेक्निकल ग्राफ्स तो आते रहेंगे. So I think Nilachal will agree with me. And I was 4 years old when I started going to Swami Digambarji. He was the chairman of Kaivalyadhama, and he was my spiritual teacher. And ये example मैं इसलिए दे रहा हूँ कि many times all of us in this world get lost in too much of intellectual pursuit. हम लोग बहुत ज्यादा विचार, बहुत ज्यादा ग्रंथ, बहुत ज्यादा पढ़ने में लगे रहते हैं, जबकि हम लोगों को ये ध्यान रखना चाहिए कि अनुभव करना सबसे महत्वपूर्ण है. Experiences are more important. तो मैं 4 साल का था तो पिताजी मुझे ले जाते थे, वहां रोज स्वाध्याय होता था. So there used to be chanting and havan, and I used to go. And every day morning and every day evening I would go without fail. Even school था तो सुबह सुबह 6:30 बजे जाता था. तो एक दिन तो समझ गए, एक हफ्ता समझ गए, एक महीना भी पिताजी समझ गए कि हाउ कम ही इज सो सिंसियर. डाउट तो रहता है भाई, इतने यंग बच्चा जो खेलता वेलता है वो कैसे, हाउ कम ही इज गोइंग देयर. एंड देन आई रिमेंबर वन डे Swamiji asked me, how come you are coming here every day to puja, because you have a school and still. And I remember telling him in the age of 4.5, कि Swamiji वो प्रसाद में जो पेड़ा मिलता है ना, मैं तो उसके लिए आता हूँ. So, the journey may start for any reason, but the experiences of what you do continue to stay and manifest. So I come from Kaivalyadhama, an institution founded in 1924, where Swami Kaivalyanandaji wanted to investigate yoga in a scientific manner based on traditional foundation. And I say that it is very important. On my background, you see where you see Kaivalyadhama and you see where yoga, tradition and science meet. For each of us, it is very important to understand this. Whether we speak of yoga as philosophy, whether we speak of yoga for therapy, or we speak of the profoundness of a yoga for spiritual upliftment, the foundation of yoga as envisaged in the texts of a yoga is very important. Because जो yogic texts है, like Hatha Pradipika, like Patanjali Yoga Sutra, like Grahana Samhita, they are essentially the experiences of the great rishis. And I always equate rishis with those scientists of today. Today's scientists have too many instruments and trying to look at human being from outside, whereas rishis, I think, had a lot of insight where they could go within themselves and interpret how and who were dwelling inside. And each one of you who is here, you might be a student or a faculty, you will understand and realize that internal experiences about yourself are most profound. Anyone else you are interacting with can tell you only to an extent about yourself. But if you are aware of your own self, that is the only way you will be completely knowing yourself. So internal journey becomes very important. And I will go back to where I started, that it is essential that we understand yoga through authentic texts to derive its true meaning. So for something like Patanjali Yoga Sutra, we take it as a foundation of a yoga. So all of the students, I tell you, whatever age you are, get hold of one book of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, keep it with yourself. You don't need to read it like a novel, just one sutra a day, and you will slowly keep realizing the profoundness, the greatness, the depth of the knowledge which it gives you in day-to-day life. Like I said, important things in life are simple, they are not complicated. We tend to make it complicated. So Swamiji was a Sanskrit scholar. He studied the texts well. But here is where the beauty lied. Swamiji was of the opinion that, there are mention of various techniques and various effects of yoga practices that are mentioned in these texts. And what he went to do one step further, which no one had done till then, was to research or re-verify what has been mentioned. For example, texts mostly recommend certain posture across Padmasana, Sukhasana. They say it is better that you practice meditation or pranayama in certain posture. We might have questions if we are inquisitive. That why this? Why can't we stand and do pranayama? Why can't we stand and do meditation? Now here, when the text mentioned, he got that into the lab, experimented, and the answer was simple, that when you are seated in a crossed leg position, the blood circulation in your upper limbs is higher, in your brain is higher, which is required for that kind of activity, for that waves to be generated. And therefore, that posture is conducive physiologically for practicing of pranayama and meditative techniques. So text held true, but we could re-verify this. Now that is very important. Our inquisitiveness should lead to such kind of understanding which imbibes the need for practice. So I hope you all are clear so far of wherever I am going. And that is where I come from, a place which has a synthesis of traditional knowledge, verifying it into scientific paradigm. So Kaivalyadhama has a research center. It has a huge library with 1200 manuscripts of yoga. It has a college which runs up to PhD. It has a healthcare center where yoga is applied as therapeutic science. So while we discuss yoga therapy, before that, I'll just throw some light on this very basic question, which I always say, that why would we want to practice yoga? If you ask, suppose I do a poll here on Zoom and I ask all of you, how many of you feel that yoga is primarily practice of yoga asanas or at physical level? And I'm sure that majority of us need to understand that yoga asanas are just 1.5% in representation in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and 98.5% is everything else. So essentially, friends, we have to first be very clear that yoga has mostly to do with the mind, what we say chitta, because human beings are driven by that. And therefore, yoga, I say, is for your physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being. That should be our understanding of yoga as a subject, yoga as a practice, yoga as a shastra. तो योग हमारे शारीरिक, मानसिक, मनोवैज्ञानिक, सामाजिक और आध्यात्मिक उन्नति के लिए. So it's a holistic science. So one thing which we should be very clear is we will have to delve much deeper, whether it is just yoga for your overall well-being. If it is for yoga therapy, then too. It is a holistic package. Please do not confuse yoga only as yoga asanas, because your body is just a means. Yes, you have to be fit. You have to, ensure that you are well. But please remember that it is the basis and not the end. And now, before we go to the slide, one more important thing. This whole process of yoga, you are young students, and I often say human beings have evolved over thousands of years. And this evolution did what? This evolution probably gave us the capacity as human beings to use our mind, or in depth what we say chitta, for higher purposes. What is the higher purpose? Have we asked our questions to ourselves? What is the purpose of us being here? What can we do for others than ourselves? These are questions which are more profound in nature. But majority of human beings still stay at their animalistic brain level. What is animalistic brain level? Animalistic brain level is that you are practicing something to concentrate on your breath, and someone puts two rasgullas in front of you. Suddenly the smell wakes you up, your eyes open, and you take your hand and take that rasgulla and eat. And you say, tomorrow I will do full meditation, but today let me enjoy the rasgulla. That is the instinct of the brain, which we call. So there are 4 similarities between animal instincts and human beings. What are those? Ahar, nidra, bhay, maithunancha. Ahar, I interpret it as hunger. Nidra, sleep. Instinctively. Bhay, fear, overdriven. You know, they say flight or fight. Instinctive reaction, which instills a state of reactiveness in us. You know, that is the instinct. But if you are a poised practitioner, then anything comes, even in emergent times, you will give 2 minutes to yourself and say, let me contemplate and respond. So the reaction is that animalistic instinct because of fear. Maithun, sensual pleasure, there have been wars because of that. And therefore, we continue, majority of us, to live with those instincts. Now, what is the importance of yoga? Very simple. I keep repeating this word, simple. In simplistic way, yoga will take you a step further. And that step further, what is that what human being has as an instinct or as a characteristic which animals don't have? And I think if I ask you this question, many of you will respond and say mind or intellect or consciousness. And that is true, because we are capable to think larger than ourselves. We are capable to think and ask questions to ourselves that why are we here for? What can we do better? What can we do for the society? So friends, please remember that our effort as human beings, you are young now, and when you grow, you have inspirational stories of big people, big industrialists who have probably vouched 90% of their wealth towards well-being of the society. You are studying in a university which has, from Birla House, they have a large legacy of contribution towards the social welfare and the social fabric of India. And this has been made possible because they had far more instinct of higher consciousness than just thinking about themselves. So I think I will pause here before I share my slides, and we are going to speak on topic which we will see. And give me 1 second, then I think it will work. Yeah, so I think you can see my slides, and yeah, this is, so we are going to speak on the therapeutic approach of yoga, which is very important, because we say therapy is the application of yoga. Yoga essentially is a science. In simple terms, what we just spoke, हमने जो अभी बात की, कि आपको higher consciousness to make you a better human being. That is the spiritual side of yoga, which is the foundation. However, there are many advantages. अब आप लोग students, and as a student, what happens before you are ready for examinations? Stress happens. And what happens if you study? I had a friend, I went on to complete law. And when I was in the final year, I had a friend, and there was this paper on a large act, the Indian Contract Act, and it was a very huge paper. So one friend of mine studied very hard, and he studied till 5 o'clock in the morning, and the paper was going to start at 9. He studied so hard, he stayed up all night, but when 9 o'clock he arrived at the examination room, he slept for 3 hours. So, these are factors of stress. These are factors which we need to control. And here, application of yoga after its understanding would be very helpful for each one of us. And like I say, it's simple. It need not be 1 hour. It need not be 2 hours. It can be very simple ways to go ahead. You see here Swami Kaivalyadhama ji. He is the founder of Kaivalyadhama. And you see Swami Digambar ji, who succeeded Swami Kaivalyadhama ji and was my teacher too. These are very profound human beings, very simple. And like I said, their whole focus was on ensuring that we experience more than what we talk. Someone asked Swami Digambar ji one question. I remember I was seated there. Swamiji said, Swamiji, can you tell me what happens after death? Swamiji did not reply. After 5 minutes, he asked again. So Swamiji said, I have not yet died, so I cannot tell you what happens after death. So, those were the practical wisdom which we received over a period of time from Swamiji, just sitting around him. As students, and also as students of yoga, one should know the historical development. 24, Swami Kaivalyadhama was the first person to start scientific research in the field of yoga. This is the historical fact of the yoga world. He did a lot of research of application of yoga. That time, all someone could think of yoga was that someone with saffron robes and big dadi standing upside down. But he got this aspect of scientific vigor in it. He says, well, postures and pranayama and dhyana, it will help one in variety of ways. 25, we hear of a lot of yoga props now, but 1925, Swamiji made some very useful things which would help people practice. So all the students, you Google inclined plane and Kaivalyadhama and you will come across a post where inverse circulation towards your brain is made possible. Otherwise, one does inverted postures, Sarvangasana, Viparita Karni, Shirsasana. These are postures which are very good for your brain. They reduce the pressure on your heart to push the blood against gravity, but these asanas are very good. Now, some of us may not be able to do this. So what Swamiji did, he made certain concoctions and we could do this very easily and derive the benefits. So as students who are attending this session of mine, I would strongly say, lectures are good, discussions are good, but try to, and you must already be practicing in most probability, but imbibe these things in yourself, in your practice in day to day. 1924 also, we had a research journal called Yoga Mimamsa. So one should look at these. It gives very profound scientific facts about yoga. 26, he started the Rugna Seva Mandir where he served the need through yoga therapy. 32, he established a center of yoga therapy in Kaivalyadhama, Mumbai, right at the Marine Drive. Let's understand, when we look at yoga as yoga therapy, please understand it fundamentally means application of certain yogic practices, sometimes, which is most of the times, for maintaining good health and prevention, sometimes to get rid of the problems which you have, and that is now evidence based. So you have certain problems with flatulence, you have certain problems with respiration, you can go to a level which is almost cured. And of course, you have adjuvant therapy where you continue yogic therapy with whatever other you are taking. And this is the slide which speaks. You have backache. We have a very dear, there's a very renowned surgeon called Alok Sharma in Mumbai. And what he does, anyone who comes to him with a herniated disc or a slip disc, first the neurosurgeon sends him to Kaivalyadhama. And he says, you go there and first see how yoga can help you. Because it is very easy for people to say, ki surgery kar. But a neurosurgeon understands that surgery on the spine is just a matter of 0.001 millimeter going wrong. So there are benefits of yoga to a large extent in some of the conditions. There are some conditions where yoga is applied to manage. You have high level of stress, you have juvenile diabetes, you practice yoga and you will maintain the parity. And then very interestingly, a friend of ours in Rajkot did a very good study. It was published. He made people practice pranayama right at the ICU beds post the recovery from open heart surgery. And what he found, that recovery of these patients was remarkable. Ketan Parekh, that is the publication he did, he's a cardiologist in Rajkot, which is again, speaks of the possibilities of yoga as therapy. In very simple terms, you may have listened to this concept again, but as far as human beings are concerned, as far as the principles of health is concerned, in Taittiriya Upanishad, we have this Panchakosha model, very simple to understand. We say first is the Annamaya Kosha, you feed yourself, you eat. It is more deeper than that. For simplistic understanding, aap sabhi vidyarthi ho, all of you are students, just try to listen, understand it very simply. First thing is nourishment with what you require. You eat food, you are nourished at the level of Annamaya Kosha. Basic. That needs to be circulated. The energy is circulated. And then the second sheath is the Pranamaya Kosha. The prana is the energy aspect. Of course, there is more in-depth understanding, but for simplistic understanding, I am saying. Then, when the circulation of the energy is prevalent, you are capable of initiating a thought process, thinking. There is a saying, bhuke pet bhajan hot na gopala. So, if students are hungry, would you be able to study? No. So, Annamaya Kosha is important, circulation is important. Once this is satisfied, And that is the reason why we say eat right kind of food. That is important. सात्विक आहार लो. आपने खा लिया 2 पिज्जा, तो क्या होगा? नींद ज्यादा आएगी. You will feel more sleepy then. So then the thinking is the manomaya kosha. More than thinking is the intellectual self, the discretion, the understanding. गुलाब जामुन रखे हुए हैं, खाना कि नहीं खाना थिंकिंग, लेकिन हमारे लिए अभी ये चीज ठीक नहीं है, वो इंटेलेक्चुअली समझे हम. So you see, the Vijnanamaya Kosh is the intellectual sheath in a very simplistic way, and where all human beings should stay is the Anandamaya Kosha. This is a kosh where you are happy, you are in blissful state, which should be the state. You wake up in the morning, you're smiling, you're happy, you're positive. This is the model, but over the period of time, अब ये आप थोड़ा ध्यान से सुनिएगा, please be little attentive. Health condition में deterioration starts ulta. Every human being is a sense of divinity, is happy, supposed to be happy. Childhood mein you don't bother about anything, you are just happy. Khana de do, masti mein raho. Somewhere the Anandamaya Kosh gets disturbed. Some days you get up, oh, I'm not feeling that energized, not that balanced, not that synthesized. That is the Anandamaya Kosh not being as it is supposed to be. Given that, now, if you do not take corrective actions, what will happen? You will start slowly realizing that even your Vijnanamaya Kosh is not as it is supposed to be. You are having difficulty in intellectual perception. Now, if you don't take corrective actions, even your thinking level gets disturbed. You think negatively, you will think more of, imbalanced thinking, which is getting affected slow. And as students, as participants, please understand this. Slowly you realize sometimes, why am I thinking negatively? That is nature, because your Manomaya Kosh is disturbed. Still we don't take action. Then what happens? Your Pranamaya Kosh gets disturbed. Sometimes we say, right in the night, hum log ud jate hain, we wake up with shortness of breath. We don't feel right. We have a very shallow breathing. What has happened? Your Pranamaya Kosh has started getting disturbed. Still you do not pay attention. Still you continue to live your life as if nothing has happened. You are not aware. Now, friends, please remember this. In today's time, we depend so much on external stimuli that we are not aware of ourselves. All of you attending this lecture, you must have attended so many lectures. You must be hearing so much. But even if 10% of what you hear, you can listen and imbibe, it would be really useful. So be aware of yourself. That is all I'm saying, that be aware of what you are as a human being. That is the greatest strength. When you come to Pranamaya Kosh disturbance, still you are not aware, and then what happens? Annamaya Kosh gets disturbed. You have indigestion, you have problem with your tummy, you don't feel well, your shoulders are aching, your eyes are red, your head is hurting, you're getting cramps. What has happened? You were not aware about the disturbances from the Anandamaya Kosh until Annamaya Kosh. Earlier, 5 slices of pizza were okay, used to digest. But what happened in 1 year? Acidity ho jati hai. What is this? Disturbance. As students, as youngsters, you should understand, be aware of yourself. So, principles of integrated health or yoga says, we look at health holistically. आपका indigestion हुआ है, so we will not give you only medicine for your digestion. Please also work on your Pranamaya Kosh, work on your Manomaya Kosh, work on your Vijnanamaya Kosh, work on your Anandamaya Kosh. So all this needs to be taken care of, and this is possible through the practice of Ashtanga Yoga. Very simple. So let me move ahead. Okay. You all can keep responding to whatever you feel like in the chat, because I've opened it. I can read. If there is some question, then we might take it. Yoga therapy is application of yoga. Very simple. And what did Swami Kaivalyadhama says, because he is the pioneer of yoga therapy. Very simple. First, take care of your mind. That is the psychological attitude. Most of us want to be physically well, but friends, mind is more important. Have a negative thought in the night at 9 o'clock and you will not able to sleep. Why? Because your mind is disturbed. You might apply any kind of aromatherapy oil, play whatever music, but until you take care of your mind, it is not. So cultivation of correct psychological attitude is important. Part of application of yoga is therapy. This looks like a complicated word, neuromuscular and neuroglandular system. What it means is at physical level, you have to be well equipped to take care of stresses and strain. All this time of COVID, we have been hearing, right? Aap fit ho, fitness level achhi hai, to it's good. Why? Because you are at a level where you can resist a lot of attacks. Third, eliminative processes, that is cleansing of body from inside. And friends, by cleansing, I just don't mean physical. Mind also needs to be cleansed. There are processes in yoga, but it is important part of yoga therapy. If you are holding on to a thought which is negative, you will continue to suffer until you are able to let it go. So elimination, not only in terms of physical, but also in terms of psychological. Regulation of diet and day-to-day behavior. This is an aspect of yamas and niyamas in yoga, which we will discuss briefly. So please remember 4 things as far as yoga application is concerned. Psychological well-being through practices. There are practices which we'll discuss. Physiological fitness. Yes, yoga asanas, bandhas, kriyas, important. Natural eliminative. We have Shuddhi kriyas, we have Tratak, we have Jalneti. All the medical doctors, at least I am near Pune and Mumbai, were practicing Jalneti during COVID times because that was cleansing process which was very effective. So why can't we do it? Ranchi में रहते हो आप, शहर में रहते हो आप, अरे जलनेती करो, इतना बेनिफिट मिलेगा कि आप पूछो मत. Regulation of diet, भाई घर का खाना हम कहते हैं अच्छा है, दाल चावल रोटी सब्जी. Why? Because simple sattvic meal, so that affects ourselves. And therefore, these are the 4 principles. What we will do, I think I have another 10-15 minutes with me, and let me go through each one of these for understanding. If you have a question, again I will say that आप question पूछ सकते हैं. बाद में समय है. I think that is also a correct psychological attitude. Please understand. पढ़ने पे आप ज्यादा ध्यान मत दो. It might be complicated. What it says is one has to be in a state of happiness and blissful. That's all. Without too much of consistent thinking, you should have the ability to be where you are in present times. So if we look at ourselves, we are not only body, you are mind. You are not only mind, you are emotion. You are not only emotion, there is that spiritual being. Maybe you don't choose to go all the way today, but your psychological attitudes define yourself. So yoga has a very important role to play for your psychological benefit. Those practices, and even if you want to apply yoga in some condition as therapy, this part remains to be most important. I told you earlier, पहले भी मैंने कहा कि सिर्फ physical, only physicality is not yoga. Yoga is holistic, so you cannot divide it into only physical and only mental and only breath. No, it has to go hand in hand. Mind, when it is disturbed, may make prone to attacks. Now, We say immune system kam ho gaya. You stay in a constant state of stress, your immune system goes down. There is a lot of evidence-based studies which have been published. And this was also said 2,500 years ago by Maharishi Patanjali. And I say I strongly recommend, whether you are 20-year-old, whether you are 21 or 25, Patanjali Yoga Sutra ki ek book leke apne bedside mein rakho. Very, very, very simple and beneficial. So this whole idea is your mind is responsible even for your body. And therefore, these what you read here is the concepts which are in the yogic texts. So psychological health has a lot to do with your physical health. Let's go further. This concept is very interesting. In a very brief instinct, we say that every human being is born with Panchaklesha. Why is it important for us to know? This is the basis of psychology from the Eastern perspective. Human being is not perfect. Many times we think, "Hamare saath hi aisa kyun ho raha hai? Why are we going through this?" No. Patanjali says each human being has these 5 afflictions without any distinction. Mahavir had it, Buddha had it, Krishna had it, everyone has it. Avidya, Smita, Rag, Dvesha, Abhinivesh. What is your journey? You are listening to this discourse. What is it? Find out at what level these exist in yourself. The main they say is avidya, lack of awareness. What is lack of awareness? Most of you must be knowing how to ride a bicycle. When you are learning to ride, all your attention was on the handle. Isko pakade raho, chhodna nahi hai. We don't have to leave this. Nothing else mattered. Side mein someone is dancing, some music is going on, you did not bother at all. Your whole attachment was handling. But when you learned to cycle, then what happened? You were aware of the trees, you could be aware of the music, you could be aware of the people. What happened? The more relaxed you were, the awareness expanded, consciousness expanded. So when we are very narrowed in the sense of awareness, that is a difficulty for us. Yoga takes that beyond that. It increases our level of awareness with us. ये बहुत important है जानना, क्योंकि if you are more aware of everything around you and yourself, much of your problems in life will cease to be there. It will reduce to a very great extent. Attachment, I say attachment is not a problem, but dependence is a problem. What is this dependence now? All the students enter, suddenly the mobile tower is not working, data is not available. What will happen? Everyone will be in a state of panic. Why? Data भी चल रहा है. WhatsApp messages का क्या होगा? Status upload का क्या होगा? Instagram update का क्या होगा? Facebook का क्या होगा? पहले कम था. पहले टेलीग्राम भेजते थे हम लोग, वो अटैचमेंट नहीं था कि रिप्लाई आएगा. अभी आप लोग WhatsApp मैसेज भेजते हैं, फिर देखते हैं डबल टिक हुई कि नहीं, फिर देखते हैं ब्लू टिक हुई कि नहीं, फिर देखते हैं रिप्लाई आया कि नहीं. And then you realize reply nahi aaya, to anxiety ho gayi. Attachment with that. So, I am not saying leave the world and go, but you need to ensure that you are dependent on yourself rather than others. Be happy in spite of and not because of. Dvesha, negativity. We are more worried about others than our own self. It is true. This is for you to understand and be aware of yourself. Whether you are 5 years old, 10 years old, or whether you are 50 or 80 years old, these qualities stay at a different level. Practices of yoga will be able to reduce and control these. Abhinivesh, fear. There is a story that there were 2 eagles. One caught hold of a snake and one caught hold of a rat. And both of them went and stood. They landed on a tree, and when the rat looked at the snake, it froze with fear, almost dead. And when the snake, who was already in clutches of the eagle, saw the rat, it started salivating because it was such good food. Both of them forgot that they were already going to say bye-bye because they were in clutches of the eagle. So what it said, that fear will make you die before you die. That is the fear. It may not occur, but the fear of examination, the fear of being unsuccessful. We have such drastic actions today being taken by youngsters. Yeah, failure is okay. You can rebound the next day. You can rebound the next try. Let us learn to fail. Let us learn. That is the strength building exercise. Why are we wanting to be successful all the time? That is not the way nature learns. The whole story of the spider trying to climb up, and I think Abraham Lincoln or someone had seen it. Imagine. So fear is the greatest difficulty. What happened during pandemic? So much of fear surrounding us. Not that it is not always needed, but excess of that becomes a difficulty. So friends, last 5-10 minutes to go. Please understand, this is the basis. Each one of you is intellectually capable to understand till what state you are in these 5 kleshas. I will skip. This is part that when the kleshas are high, this is what is evident. And why I wanted to show this is because even 2,500 years ago, they said that these are the disturbances which are caused in human beings. See, then people could realize there is disturbance called diseases, there is dullness. These are the repercussions when you are not in harmony. So it has been discussed for a long time, and we are deriving at the point of how well we will do with the practices of yoga, what we can take care. This is one old experiment at Kaivalyadhama. You see this slide A, normals. This was done at Kaivalyadhama right in 50s. You know, this gentleman, he's a footballer, normal stomach lining. He was rested. You see this in the slide B, the stomach looks fairly good. There is no problem, very clean, defined. The footballer was told he cannot see the World Cup match because there is no electricity, and he was induced anger and irritation in our laboratory. Again, they took the X-ray. There was contraction in muscles which are involuntary, which you cannot control because of what is happening in your mind. He was told this was an experiment. He tried to relax and it started to recover. But what does this indicate? Your mind has a profound impact on your body. You start worrying all the time and then you say, oh, yahan dard ho raha hai, pasina jata ho raha hai, concentration nahi ho raha hai. Mind affects your body. So friends, please be very, very clear about your mind aspect. For your second point of body, asanas are what? Physical exercises are different. You go running, you go cycling, you go gym, that's fair. We are not excluding. But yoga is your ability to practice asanas, 3 important principles: sthir sukham asanam, stability. Raise those legs of yours to 90 degrees and maintain it there. That is will derive you the maximum benefit, because steady body will lead to steady mind. Effortlessness, there is no competition. Don't look at someone practicing right beside you and say, oh, uska to pair piche jata hai, mera nahi jata hai, main jabardasti karunga. No, that is not the way yoga asanas are done, friends. It has to be blissful. It has to be without any kind of strain on yourself. What it does, tato dvand anavigata. There are conflicts. There are various thoughts. All it will do is basically merge your personality into one. So physical well-being through practices of asanas, through other practices of pranayama. We have limited time. We are not getting in detail about it. Plus practice to make yourself physically and mentally stable is the second aspect of application of a yoga. And when I gave you that example, that why should you practice yoga in steady form? This is an old experiment, but principles remain the same. You see all the A's, they are when asanas were done in manner of exercise. You see the readings. These are all the EMG reading of your how the muscles are behaving. The B slides are when you are made to do the same asanas in a very relaxed way, in a very profound way, very simple awareness. Close your eyes, look how relaxed you are. Turn. What happens? See the readings. That is the way you should be. Exercise is cardiovascular exercise. That is different. Do not confuse yoga asanas with form of exercise. As simple. Please remember, because you are wanting to work on your mind. Similar kind of experiment to show how this to be done. Mudras and bandhas are practiced. Very simple. Students study for a long time. Practice Brahma Mudra. Take your neck on the left side, head on the right side. Simple, but practice is in the spirit of sthira sukham, stability and steadiness. Practice of pranayama. Your breath has direct relationship what your thinking is. So much of evidence. If you are able to control your breath, you will be able to stabilize yourself. Whenever you are in examination or a stressful situation, what do? Whenever you are feeling panic attack, close your eyes, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Isn't it? So pranayama is the key. We have a lot of emphasis on pranayama, and I want you to ensure that your focus of pranayama increases in your life as students. And I'm sure there must be activities which will be giving you options to practice of pranayama. Cleansing processes. Someone came once, I was in a college in Mumbai called Mithiwai. वहां गए तो वहां बोले सर ये सब गंदा लगता है हमको नाक में पानी. तो मैंने कहा गंदगी आ कहां से रही? सब आपकी तो गंदगी है. So cleansing, just start doing it. You will be so much, energized. People have this AC में बैठ के sinus problem हो गई है, नाक बंद है. Simple things, but profound impact we have been doing. Are we waiting for it to be packed, which is packaged in US already, but are we waiting for it to come back to us and then we'll start practicing nasal cleansing? No, it has been there for thousands of years. So get on to that as a part of this. And lastly, there are many researches which are there. Why I am showing you, you should be a rational individual. So much of evidence is there where we have seen there is an impact, profound impact of yoga in people with hypertension. Dean Ornish published the reversal of heart disease through lifestyle conditions. So what you should believe in yourself, believe in the practices. Back pain, so much computers aa gaye, tab se shoulder pain, back pain, head pain, everything is going on. So much of evidence is already generated onto these aspects. These are the intricate practices. Again, why I am showing you this is, please remember, yoga is not about yoga asanas alone. These are profound practices. This is Udyan Bandh. It is so good for your heart, so good for your digestive system. We may not have learned it because nowadays this is not the popular part of yoga. But as students who are in such a good university, try to devote some time to understand and practices. Negative pressure generated. Read about it, because these things, Swami Kaivalyadhama ji discovered the vacuum and he said it was Madhav. He named it Madhav Das vacuum. Madhav Das vacuum is demonstrated by what you see in the photo. He can suck the milk which is there in the beaker, because the vacuum is there. it increases the blood circulation in your functional organs. आप liver को exercise कर सकते हो क्या, intestine को कर सकते हो क्या, kidney को कर सकते हो, इसके द्वारा कर सकते हो. These are the practices meant for that. Learn these practices, these are important. Someone has asked me a question on Keval. You know, Kumbhak is retention of breath. Over a period of time, when pranayam is done well, you may come to a state where the Kumbhak is easily achieved automatically. That is also automated response when you practice. But remember, fad nahi. It is not that overnight you will achieve Keval Kumbhak. Go gradually in practices, and you will achieve a good synthesized health status. You know, these are experiments of samadhi. What is the difference between hypnosis and samadhi? Where they found that a state of samadhi is further than hypnosis, where person actually at internal level does not feel anything. That is the importance of it. And please remember, friends, when we spoke of the psychological aspect, one very important thing, and which I also recollected with a question which has been asked, are the practices of yamas and niyamas, which I wanted to keep for the end. But for all the students, for all of us, I say they are the most important aspect of yoga. That is the nature which should be imbibed in us. We can speak of a lot of things, practice yoga for 2 hours, and then suddenly something happens and I get very angry and I throw a glass right there. Finished, yoga is finished. So what is important, friends, is how we manifest the practices and its experience. 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. And yama niyam, Swami Kaivalyadhama said, had psychophysiological impact. Ahimsa, Satya, Aste, Aparigraha, Brahmacharya, 5 yamas. I will leave you to get that book of Patanjali. Order it. I will encourage Mr. Nilachal to get that for students. And you know, niyamas, Sauch, Santosh, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwar, Pranidhan. You know, beautiful concept. Truth, imbibe truthfulness. Non-violence, your attitude of non-violence. Very easy to say maro mat, but what about our attitude? All of this is managed, enhanced through practices of yoga. Swami Kaivalyadhama said one very important thing. No amount of intellectual persuasion or discussion will take you nearer to the experience. Only the practice aspect will make you realize the true value. So friends and young friends and everyone, understanding this is important, but ultimate benefit of yoga lies in its practice and experience. So I thank you for your patient hearing. You did not have any choice, but in virtual world you have a choice. Luckily, you are not in the classroom. So I'm happy I could have interacted with you, and you can, I would not be able to answer all the questions here, but you are free to send me on an email, and that's Subodh, subodhkdham@gmail.com. I'll write it for you, and that would be easier way to respond at leisure to any questions you have. And thank you so much, Nilachal, for having me here, and it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
The pleasure is completely ours, sir, and thank you for giving your valuable time, sir. And in this, your busy schedule, you have taken so much of your time and given us. Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening in today's session about the yoga therapy, which we always admire how it will be and how the scientific approach would look like. So thank you for giving that insight to all the students and all the participants of our university and abroad also. And thank you so much, sir. And I would like to just invite, we're going to the end of this webinar session. I'd like to invite our admin cum coordinator of this department, Mr. Ashutosh Trivedi sir for the vote of thanks. Over to you.
आप सभी को आज इस योगा के योग यात्रा के द्वितीय सत्र में योग के प्राचीन इतिहास और मार्ग में आज जो प्रमुख रूप से अपने वक्ता श्री सुबोध तिवारी, आप कैवल्य धाम लोनावाला महाराष्ट्र के मुख्य कार्मिक प्रशासनिक प्रमुख आज प्रमुख वक्ता के रूप में थे। अपने सरला बिरला विश्वविद्यालय के कुलपति प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर गोपाल पाठक सर, रजिस्ट्रार प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर विजय कुमार सिंह सर, डीन योगा डॉक्टर सुबानी वाड़ा मैडम, अपने विश्वविद्यालय के मुख्य कार्मिक प्रशासनिक प्रमुख डॉक्टर प्रदीप वर्मा, योगा के एचओडी मिस्टर नीलाचल जी, करीमा, नम्रता एवं अपने इस आभासी माध्यम से जुड़े हुए प्रिय छात्र छात्राओं, धन्यवाद के इस क्रम में अभी मैं सुन रहा था सुबोध जी के बारे में कि इन्होंने बताया कि वो केवल जब 4 वर्ष के थे तो इन्होंने अपने गुरु के सानिध्य में जाकर के कुछ, हर एक व्यक्ति के व्यक्तित्व का अपना होता है कि वो उसके कारण ही वहां से वो जुड़ता है, तो इन्होंने भी वो केले के उस लालच से जुड़े और इन्होंने बताया कि अपने जो शरीर का पंचकोश होता है, अन्नमय कोश, प्राणमय कोश, मनोमय कोश, विज्ञानमय कोश और आनंदमय कोश, हमारे यहाँ कहा भी गया है क्षिति जल पावक गगन समीरा पंच रचित यह अधम शरीरा, ऐसा आपने यहाँ कहा गया है। ठीक उसी प्रकार ये कोश है। आज इतने ज्ञानवर्धक सत्र में लगभग 1 घंटे से अधिक समय से हम सारे लोग जुड़े हुए हैं। आप सभी को जो इस कार्यक्रम को इतने कुशलता के साथ पूर्ण किया, आप सबको धन्यवाद और साधुवाद के पात्र हैं। हृदय के नितल से सारे शिक्षक शिक्षिकाओं का एवं जो तकनीकी रूप से सहयोग कर रहे हैं उन सब का, और सबसे अधिक विद्यार्थियों का जो इस धैर्य के साथ सुने। और अपने बीच में सुबोध जी जो आप मुख्य कार्मिक प्रशासनिक प्रमुख, उन्होंने इतना ज्ञानमय और जो अनुभवजन्य बातें थी विद्यार्थियों के बीच में रखा। सभी को हृदय के नितल से धन्यवाद देते हुए मैं अपनी बात समाप्त करता हूं।
धन्यवाद सर. Thank you sir for the vote of thanks. Now we will go to the end of the session for the Shanti part. I request Vishakha and Hattie for the Shanti part.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you sir. Thank you everyone for participating, and for those who were asking for the recording, we will just share you in the coming days. Thank you sir. Thank you to both.
Best of luck. Namaskar, namaskar, namaskar.
Pranam.